after high school, I found out I got pregnant. So, when you're pregnant in a Mexican family, you're supposed to get married and you're supposed to become a mom, and you're supposed to just fall into line and, build your family in that way. I'm spitting something over and over and over again. And then at the end of it, I remember feeling like a release. Like I felt better. There's something really therapeutic about this that's happening in the mind and the body, and I want to study it.
That's why a lot of people in the church end up getting hurt, or a lot what they call backsliding.
I think that one of the things that the church can miss is
Ya está, podcast, boy. Ya estás, no vuelvo para atrás. Libre del Alcatraz, en la guerra tengo paz. Mis metralletas es la oración y adoración. Salvación para mi nación, manifestar el reino es la meta. Puesta la armadura, que las criaturas andan duras de la dimensión oscura. Mi alma se apresura.
So what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of
Ya Estás Podcast.
Yo, what's good, bro? How you doing?
Man, let's go, man. I'm ready to go. Appreciate
All right.
it. Today's early, right?
It is early, so we're going to catch the worm.
Yeah.
So, man, our guest today, she was gracious enough
Dope.
to give us her time. I hit her up on the DM because shout out to our brother, Johnny Walsh. He shared one of her stories or posts, and it really caught my eye because, she's a therapist, and I was looking through her profile, and I saw her spitting rhymes, bro, and she was like getting
Got
down.
bars?
Bars, homie, for
Okay.
days. So I was like, wait a second.
Days?
For days. So I was like, wait a second. She's a therapist that can spit bars? Like, I've never seen that before. So I hit her up, and once again, she was gracious enough to give us her time. So without further ado, let's give our warm welcome to our sister Brittany. Yo, what's up?
Thank you for having me, man. It's great to be here
Thanks.
early in the morning.
Yeah, right. And I know we had to, juggle to get you on because you're.
I know. I'm
You're
sorry.
there?
Yeah.
No.
Super busy.
No, I mean, we're just so thankful that you gave us your time. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're a therapist, you're a mother,
Yeah.
a spouse, or
Yeah.
So you got a lot on your plate.
I
So,
do. I juggle a lot. Yeah.
All right.
I'm happy to be here. I'm like, you guys seem real cool, so I'm excited to build with you and connect.
I'm going to say one thing before we get started. Going back to the rapping. My boy here, for
Yeah.
him to compliment you,
Oh, that
'Cause
means a
this-
lot.
yeah,
'Cause
this-
I'm really critical of, I think any artist is, right? It's like we never feel like it's good enough. So I appreciate that.
yeah,
Oh,
he's been rapping since Pañales. So if you see his music,
Yeah.
he's a dope dude. He doesn't say anything, and he can freestyle.
I appreciate it.
He's
And
a
I
kung
said,
fu.
in Spanish, but,
Yeah.
in English, I can't really. I haven't practiced it enough. But.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get it cracking. So tell us about your origin. Like, where are you from?
Yeah.
What was your family dynamic like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, like the edge of it. So I grew up in a small town called Rowland Heights. So it's like kind of bordering like La Habra, but then it's also not too far from Pomona. So it's kind of like, it's considered LA County, but like really close to Orange County too.
Okay.
And not too far from like San Bernardino. So grew up out there. But my grandpa is originally from Eden Gardens. So like Solana Beach area.
Okay.
So it's also known as La Colonia out here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Little Rob's.
That's where Lil Rob's from. Yeah. So I would come out here. I would come to San Diego a lot as a kid. But I didn't know San Diego existed I didn't know it existed past La Jolla. So I was like, I don't know. Like San Diego's cool, but it seemed like a resort town. But then I don't know what happened, but I ended up being exposed to like all of San Diego, and I was like, yo, this is like beautiful. There's so much culture here. It reminds me a lot of where I grew up. San Gabriel Valley is huge, and there's like a mix of different cultures. A lot of people that get priced out of LA, they move into the valley. So you kind of have like these cities that are or towns that are separate, but they're like super close. Kind of like what you see in City Heights is City Heights, and it's Kensington, and then North Park, like all these different places. So I was exposed to San Diego a lot. I had family out here, cousins out here. My grandpa's originally from here, and so I grew up with boys. So I'm the only girl. So grew up in a very big football family. Yeah,
Charger fan? No, huh? Raider fan?
right, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really.
Could have guessed because of all the black, you know?
What
Yeah.
was that saying right now? We listen, we don't judge.
Yeah, we listen.
Listen and we don't-
judge.
Look, I don't really have a team now.
Right.
I'm a USC alum, so I really root for like USC players and whatnot. But that's that's my team.
Reggie Bush.
Yeah, Reggie Bush. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I grew up with brothers. My mom's from Monterey Park, my dad's from East LA. So I kind of grew up in a very like Chicano culture. Family was everything. We got together all the time. Was raised with my cousins. Raised on really good music from like, funk, oldies to like classic rock. My brother's 4 years older than me, so I also had the privilege of growing up on, 90s hip hop and R&B. So I really was privileged and grateful. I try to raise my kids on some good music too.
Wine and stuff.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I spent in regards to my upbringing, I grew up in the valley, but I spent a lot of time in East LA with my grandma. I credit my grandma for a lot. She's who taught me people. I call therapy work people work. And so I credit her a lot. She taught me more than I ever learned in graduate school or my clinical training. And what she taught me is how to just be human and how to navigate people's different energies, how to talk to people, sometimes how to match someone's energy effectively.
Oh, wow.
And my grandma is she's originally from Boyle Heights, so she had a interesting upbringing. Grew up, part of gangs and whatnot. At that time, like her generation, you kind of have to be a part of that for safety.
Yeah.
But she was also a special ed. She worked in special ed and whatnot later on in her life. So she really had a life where she navigated a lot. She raised, she raised 2 entrepreneurs and a whole doctor at East LA. I think about my uncles. So I come from a family of hustlers. I come from a family of like people that created something out of nothing. And so it's a big part of who I am today.
That's dope. So would you give credit to your grandma that it was the biggest inspiration for you to
Yeah.
jump on the field?
Yeah, because my grandma was real with it, right? Like she didn't live a perfect life. She made a lot of mistakes, but she would be honest with me about it. She wasn't, I think sometimes there's so much shame with like the elders in our family that they're not willing to admit the mistakes that they've made and whatnot. But my grandma always kept it real. She's like, yeah, I messed up, but you make sure you don't do that. And so I think what I've learned in working with so many people from so many different places is people really appreciate authenticity and transparency.
Come on now.
And if you're not that, people can smell that a mile away.
You got to keep it 100.
Yeah, of course. And so I think like those life principles, right? Like the things that my grandma also didn't drive. She walked everywhere. So we walked to the church. We walked to church. We would walk to the bank. We would walk to the store, like walk to her mom's house, her sister's house. So on those walks, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about East LA. I learned a lot about small business. I learned a lot about graffiti, like all these little things, right? That was like my college too. That was my classroom.
Plus, grandma, bro, being like, she was the biggest therapist.
Yeah.
Because to balance all the personalities of the nephews, her sons,
yeah.
her daughters,
Yeah. Yeah.
So grandma had superpowers.
Well, I think the elders in our communities are that though, right? Like when we're really going through it,
They're the voice of reason right now.
Or maybe they don't necessarily, maybe they don't have there's some grandparents that don't get comfortable with vulnerable conversations, but they'll make that meal and they'll sit with you at the table and eat with you, right? Like it's little things like that provide us like calmness and connection when we're in a chaotic world.
Okay. So your upbringing wasn't around rough environments, or what you say?
Not really. I was like, I was raised in like a pretty like pretty chill neighborhood. But it was it's kind of like the best way I could describe where I grew up is it's kind of like what Riverside is to the Valley now. Like, so a lot of people are moving into Riverside because it's more affordable.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's not a lot of violence or anything like that where I grew up, but there was also a lot of like just different cultures. And so it was really cool to kind of see, different people's different ways of life. A lot of the people I grew up with, there were, third, fourth generation Mexican American, or I grew up around a lot of Asian Americans too, like immigrants, first generation as well. So I think the cool thing about that is I saw a lot of commonalities. And I saw this too when I moved to Hawaii for my graduate program. I'm like, oh, like, this is like our version of a carne asada, right? Or this is like, you'd start seeing like the core values that are very similar amongst all cultures. But yeah, I grew up in a pretty safe neighborhood. But what I will say is the best way I could describe my dad is, have you seen La Bamba?
Oh yeah.
My dad is like Bob.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my dad is intense.
Oh, the brother. Oh,
Yeah.
fighter.
Yeah, my dad is intense. And my mom is very like, my mom is very chill. She was like very spiritual too. So it was dope for us to be raised and exposed to both sides because my dad was very intense. So we were raised like you weren't allowed to sleep in, you weren't allowed to chill. Like you always had to be doing something. And yeah, it was like super hard on us. My dad was also in the army too. But he's also from East LA. So he raised us very old school, very, very old school. And my mom was kind of like, her family kind of exposed us to, church and prayer and Bible study, stuff like that. So we kind of got, we had a lit side of our family, then we had like the other side that's a little bit more calm. And then we grew up in a neighborhood that was very like integrative. So it was interesting.
So where'd you go to high school?
Roland High School.
Roland High School.
Yeah, Roland High School.
Graduated from there?
Graduated there, yeah.
You graduated, then what happens?
Yeah, so this is a story. This is like where my life kind of changes. So when I went to Roland, that's where I was really immersed in underground hip hop. And so I was drawn to underground hip hop because it was like the most diverse setting, right? Like in underground hip hop, it didn't matter what you look like. It just mattered if you had the craft of emceeing or b-boying or graffiti art. So I was really drawn into that. So
Daggers.
yeah.
The four elements, right?
The four elements. Well, I would say there's multiple elements. Those are the four main core elements, but there's also the
What are
element.
they? What do you mean?
Well, in hip hop, the four elements is
What is it?
graffiti,
Graffiti?
breakdancing, DJing, and MCing.
There's also knowledge of self. There's also street entrepreneurship, language. So the artist.
The heck? There's the 10 commandments of hip hop?
Oh no, there are.
Did I miss this?
Yeah, no, there's a temple of hip hop. I think KRS-One created it. So there's commandments, there's principles.
Is that an East Coast thing?
So I would say that if we're really looking at cultural hip hop,
Right.
Yeah, was created in the South Bronx, and when you look at that movement, there are principles to hip hop culture,
Gotcha.
which is, it's there's core principles. So the argument to that is if you don't abide by those principles, you're not hip hop, and then that's a whole hip hop head argument.
Gotcha.
Right?
So you can break dance?
No. I
Tag?
wish.
You tag?
I did try tagging. I was not good at it at
me
all.
too. I tried tagging. I
I was trash.
Yeah.
But what was cool is like thinking about it now, a lot of the graffiti artists that I followed, they created brands for themselves, right? That's why you see Obey where Obey's at. Obey was a graffiti artist, or like different brands that were influenced by hip hop culture. Tribal's a great example of that.
Gecko. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
But I think like that's the street entrepreneurship side. That's the element of hip hop, right? So taking your craft and monetizing, but then having ownership over it.
So you fall in love with hip
I
hop.
fell in love with hip hop for sure. I grew up on West Coast hip hop, like Dog Pound and East Siders and
Nate Dogg.
Nate Dogg, yeah, like for
Rest in
sure.
peace.
I know Nate Dogg was a legend. So I grew up on that. Like that was like what my brother introduced me to. So I felt like I found something I was like really connected to. But then after high school, I found out I got pregnant. Or I found out I was pregnant. So, you know, when you're pregnant in a Mexican family, you're supposed to get married and you're supposed to become a mom, or you're supposed to just fall into line and, you know, build your family in that way. And that just wasn't the route for me. So I had my daughter, and I had this pivotal moment where I was just like, it's on me. Like, it's really on me to figure it out now and to make a comeback. And I didn't know what that comeback was going to be, but I was like, it's on me.
Yeah.
And again, like I come from a family of hustlers. Like I don't know what my next move is, but I do know how to work. I do know how to push
your
through
dad.
things. Yeah, exactly.
No puedes estar tranquila.
Yeah. It's very much like do you guys know who David Goggins is, the Navy SEAL?
Of course.
Yeah. So my dad's like
beast.
Yeah, my dad's like that. Like
Ooh, nice.
very like no excuses, lock in. And I'm grateful I
Shout out
grew
to
up
your
with
dad.
that. I know, I'm really grateful we grew up. Me and my brothers both grew up like that. And I think you could see it in our lives. And how we raise our kids.
No chill on his side.
Yeah. But, you know, there's balance to that because that's a problem. That's a problem
You
to
know
always
what?
be
I was
like.
just gonna say that, but I wanted you to say it because now it's considered, you know, like not healthy for parents to be like so much.
Yeah. I mean, like, my kids are in competitive sports.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it was like to have my dad on the sideline.
Yeah.
Like, it is anxiety provoking. It is embarrassing. But I mean, my dad's just an intense person.
Gotcha.
Like, I look back, I have a lot of compassion. I have a lot of compassion for him now because I could see like, oh, you were actually right. Or like your heart was solid, but your delivery was just bad.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, gotcha.
there's
The
people.
intention was good, but
Yeah.
the
And see, my grandma was like that too. Like a lot of people, when I talk about my grandma, that was his mom. Yeah, they're very similar. And my middle child was born on my dad's birthday. She's just like my dad. Yeah.
Clone.
Sheesh, man. I'm like, Lord, what are you trying to teach me here? No, but a lot of people, when I talk about my grandma, they think like the traditional soft, like nurturing grandma. My grandma was gangster with it though. Like she would call you out. She would let it be known. She didn't have no secrets. And so she made a lot of people uncomfortable, but that discomfort was needed in the family.
Yes.
Like if you're messing up, there's a certain person in the family that should hold you accountable, right? That was my grandma. So
you had your kid, and then what was that next step?
yeah.
Come back.
Yeah, the comeback. I didn't know what to do, so I just went to community college. And when I enrolled in community college, I was like, I'm just gonna get a certificate and my associate's degree. I'm gonna start with my general ed. Like I don't really know, but that's the plan. So I went to community college and I took a class and I met a professor. His name is Professor Wilson. He's actually at Cal State Long Beach now, but he changed my life. He was like the first person to tell me to challenge me. He's like, where are you going to transfer after this? And I'm like, I'm not trying to transfer. Like, that's for smart people. That's for people that have money. Like, I can't afford to go to college like that. And he's like, why not? He's like, he sat with me, created a plan. He connected me to resources. And he was like, look, I've taught at UC Berkeley. I've taught at all these universities. You are at a university level. Keep going. And that was the first person. I grew up in the 90s. So 90s public school system, like the teachers, they did not pour into us in that way. Like, in fact, you know, the teachers told my parents that I would never make it in elementary school. So for that to be a college professor, he also was from Diamond Bar, which is like the neighborhood city to Rowland Heights. For him to tell me that, like, that really lit a fire under me. And the plan was not easy. I had a lot of fun in high school. So I had D minuses, like I barely graduated. So he asked me, he's like, where do you want to go to college? If you could go anywhere, like just give yourself permission to dream it. I was like, I would want to go to
Mission.
give yourself permission to dream it. Because I think we stay in a box, right? It's comfortable to stay in this box. It's comfortable staying, where you grew up.
Picture frame. Just keep it there.
Yeah, it's familiar.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you could go to any school in the world, where would you go? And I was like, I would love to go to USC. Because USC, my family are they're my uncle that's a chemist. He went to USC. So what
Because it's in the hood.
that, but it's also like we're a big football family too, right? So some of the greatest come out of USC. I grew up, I remember going to my uncle's graduation at USC and like walking the campus and seeing famous people and like athletes, and it's just like
It's a good school.
it's just like I don't like this is just, you're just like it's kind of like it's just weird, like you don't really feel like you belong there
Yeah.
coming from the valley. I'm a normal person. So I said I would love to go to USC. So I met with the counselor, academic counselor, and they're like, you have to take all of these classes in honors. You have to get A's in them. You have to do all these programs, leadership programs, community service programs to show the university like that you have changed your life. You went from D's and F's to like straight A's, and you're in leadership and like blah blah blah. And universities love to hear that story, like the comeback story, right?
The underdog.
The underdog story,
Yeah.
right? So I did that and I delivered and I got, A's and I, executed the plan. So I submitted the application and I'll never forget, it was July 22nd. I went up to the mailbox and I saw that big envelope that said, "Welcome to the Trojan family." And at that point, I was like, I made it. And it wasn't that I made it for me, but I was like,
For us.
for us, for my family. Like
your
my brothers could say,
daughter?
yeah, my daughter. My brothers could say like, oh, my sister went to USC. Like there's certain pride. I kind of like when I moved to San Diego, I see that with San Diego State. Like that, there's a lot of pride in being an Aztec, right? That's how it is in LA. So yeah, I went to USC, and to be honest, it was hard for me.
I was about to ask you, how was it? How was it juggling being a mom, young mom, going to school? Were you had a job or?
No, I didn't have a job, so I locked in. I got it done in a year and a half.
Oh wow!
And I didn't work, but I took like 6 classes a semester. My daughter was able to go to the daycare on campus with me. So, we were.
They have a daycare?
They do, yeah. The thing about community colleges is they have a lot of programs for like first generation college students, single moms. So I took advantage of all of those. I found a lot of great mentors and friends too that were like on the same path as me. So I got it done in a year and a half. And I also will say like I had a village, right? So like my daughter's like her dad's family helped out a lot. Her tia, my family helped out a lot. But it was definitely not an easy path.
So you never got married with the dad, or
No.
you guys had a pretty cool relationship?
Yeah, we're cool. I love his family. Like especially like his sister, his little brother and I were like best friends in high school. But his sister and his mom were like a main, source of support when my daughter was young, and still is. So again, I didn't do it by myself. But no, I didn't get married. I think when you graduate high school, you just like, I don't know about you guys, but I was just like real with myself. I'm like, okay, this like relationships look different. No, I don't. For me, I would have been the same if I didn't have a daughter, but she really got me, especially because I had that mindset of like it's on me. So there was a lot of pressure I put on myself of changing, like not just the trajectory of my life, but her life, right? So like going to USC, and then it didn't just stop there. I kept pushing, and I still keep pushing. It's my problem. I don't know how to chill. So I saw it as that, like this is something that this is going to benefit not just myself, but her and my whole family.
I wish I would have done that because I became a dad at 19 myself, like
Okay.
fresh out of high school.
Mm.
But I didn't have that guidance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I didn't have nobody that was
No, that's
to
real.
me. So that seems like a pivotal point for you. So when did you decide to get into the therapy field?
Yeah, so it started at USC. So when I was at USC, I was very immersed in still the local hip hop scene. And I was making a lot of music at that time too. I was studying like more so the macro social implications of hip hop, like what does sexism look like in hip hop culture, like all that stuff.
Subject?
Yeah, I mean sociology is a study of groups, right?
Gotcha.
So I studied that a lot. But I was recording a lot, and I was recording with a good friend of mine. He just passed away. EQ, rest in peace. Him. He's like a LA legend. He had like this spot called the Ashtray, and it was basically the back part of his house. And it was just like a studio, and
A lot of smoking.
I didn't smoke. Not really. Like I didn't really
It's called
smoke.
the ashtray. That's what it was like.
Ashtray. Well, everyone did. But for me, I made a lot of just making just a lot of music, and it was a couple of studio. It was like one. I would go there a lot, but there was this one moment where we recorded a song, and before we record, right, it's like we would chop it up, like how you doing. It's kind of like a check in, like what's going on in your lives, what's coming up from. It's kind of like that's how we do it in therapy. It's like you kind of build, and then you put the beat on, and then you start like, okay, this beat makes me feel this, or this is what I'm writing about, and then you create a whole song. And it was after a studio session. I recorded a song, and when you record, you probably know it's not. You don't get it in one take. If you do, you're lucky.
Yeah.
But you're trying to evoke an emotion, a story. So I'm spitting something over and over and over again, and we finally get it. And then at the end of it, I remember feeling like a release. Like I felt better. And I was like, there's something really therapeutic about this that's happening in the mind and the body, and I want to study it. So then that's where I applied to graduate school. My goal and my mission then, I got married at that time, and my husband was former Navy, so he got orders to Oahu. So I applied to graduate school at UH Manoa, and I went into graduate school with the mission to study the therapeutic implications of hip hop culture.
So it was it was this is my voice.
You're good.
It was hip hop that actually inspired you to get into therapy. That's wow, I never
Right.
heard such a thing.
Yeah, it was definitely that.
So wow. And then how was the Hawaii experience? Did that give you a whole different perspective of life and people?
For sure. It was hard for me the first year because I was pregnant with my second child, and I just started a graduate program too. So I literally started a graduate program in August, and I had my daughter. She was born in December during break. I went back in January for spring semester.
Wow.
So it was a lot of change that happened. It was also my first time ever living out of California. So it was hard for me. There was no Mexican food. You know what I mean? I was away from my grandma, my family.
food in Hawaii.
There is Mexican food, but it ain't like our Mexican food.
It's not the same, bro.
No, it's not. But Hawaii was a very special and sacred place for me and my family. Hawaii is a place that taught me the spiritual connection to land. There's a certain place in Hawaii, a certain spot that I always go to when I visit. It's a place called Waimanalo. It's a very local place. And there's a little spot there. I would go there all the time, and I would just pray, make my greatest life decisions there. It's where I experienced God. And I experienced God more there than I ever did in a church. And so Hawaii taught me the importance and the spiritual sacredness of land, of culture, of family. Like in Hawaii, like that comes first before anything else.
You know, I just got back. Literally,
Okay.
I flew back yesterday.
Okay.
I landed yesterday morning, and we went to a luau.
Yeah.
You know, and they do their ceremonies. And before, when I had more of a religious mindset, I would have been like, no, we're not, you know.
I'm not gonna partake.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that's idol worshiping and blah blah blah, you know. But my wife really wanted to do it, and we were out there celebrating our anniversary.
Nice.
And now I've just become a student of life and student of people, and I really enjoyed their celebration and their ceremonies, and it's just their way of, you know, doing their thing. And something that resonates in scriptures is when Paul went to Greece, and he, I can't remember the exact scripture, but says that, paraphrasing, he went and he saw all these statues and all these images that were, you know, the Greeks built. And when he went up to preach to the leaders there, he admired them. He said, oh, I really admire the way you guys, your faith and your worship. He said, but I come and I saw a play that said to the invisible God, and that's the one I represent. So it's just his approach. It always hit me, and I was like, okay, that's dope. So going to the common denominator in mental health, and well, let's say in the hip hop community. I was gonna say in the ghetto, but you know, the ghetto and the hip hop, that's where it was.
Comes from the streets.
Right, that's the birthplace. So, what would you say is the common denominator that you've seen?
That we're made to create. I think creativity is like I think that we have this stigma that, oh, there's creatives and they're the artistic ones. We're all creatives. And I think that creativity is a way that we give back to, you know, people, the world. And so everything is creative. Running a business is creative. Raising kids is creative. Cooking is creative. Like I don't like to cook. My husband's really good at cooking. And he's so, like, he takes his time. And like, we think about how culturally we cook too. We don't cook with a recipe, you know, A through Z. Like, we add in spice and flavor and like change recipes to tailor it to, like, my grandpa liked his food a little spicy. I didn't, right? Like, that's all creative. It's all creativity. So I think about, you know, people's faith practices. You know, I think the common denominator is it is very creative in the sense of how some people pray, some people meditate, some people have a mantra, some people's mantra is you know, Psalm 23. So I think that we call things very different names, but I ultimately think that we are made to create.
Well, because we were created in the likeness of God, who was a creator. So
Right.
I couldn't agree with you more. And would you say in the church environment, there's a lack of awareness of that? From your experience, obviously.
Like, so I'm gonna be transparent with you. I'm gonna keep it real.
Yeah,
Like, I definitely think that there's a lot of I think that in the church, people like to fit things into a box and play it safe. So I think creativity is embrace, but only if it looks like this, right? And then if you collaborate with somebody else that doesn't practice the same thing, then you're not welcomed or you're not doing God's work, which I think is really dope. What you guys do is, like, you embrace every walk of life. You're open to hearing stories, because I think that that's what makes things relatable to people. That's what can speak to people. In my work as a therapist, sometimes I bring myself into the work. Sometimes I talk a little bit about where I'm from and how I grew up. And that makes the person I'm working with that's been through a whole lot feel less alone. Or they could feel like, oh, damn, I'm not weird because I grew up like that too. You know what I mean?
That's me, right?
Yeah, it's connection. I think that's the thing about creativity, is it provides safe spaces to connect. I think about DMX.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let's say or even Tupac. we take both of those two men as an example. Their creativity and their art, and I think Pac lived until what, 25?
Yeah.
Like think about
6 or something.
like think about all the art and like work he's put out by that age. That's crazy.
That's why.
But that alone, like, created safe spaces for people to be vulnerable, to express. Like, maybe we can't talk about our anger, but we could, we could rap word for word, one of his songs and let that out.
Okay.
And that's the important part of creativity, is it allows us to feel things and release them. Because we become professional suppressors and we just hold it, right? And then it comes out in
Naturally.
unhealthy ways,
Yeah.
In destructive ways.
very destructive ways. Yeah.
When it comes out,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has to come out.
it has to come out.
Would you agree? Like,
Oh yeah, no, it's not has to. It will come out. Like it's not a matter of if, it's when. That's how we're created.
that's what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
And would you say that's why a lot of people in the church end up getting hurt, or a lot what they call backsliding?
I think that one of the things that the church can miss is just how to connect with somebody, right? Like, we see a behavior and we might say, oh, well, they're not doing this, this, and this. Something's wrong with them, versus asking the question around, well, what happened to them? And what are they living through right now? Or I also think, like, if in the church, if you don't check certain boxes, there's no room to connect. There's no willingness to connect.
Yeah.
If you are labeled this, then you're not accepted. You got to go.
It's so crazy because I didn't start going to church until I was like an adult.
Mm-hmm.
My mom never spoke about God at all. Mm-hmm. And I see your eyes going like this, so you're playing your therapist. Look.
Tell me more. No.
So, church, like, just knowing the social, because I was in Mexico, so all that,
Yeah.
the way the people reacted, I was used to it. So when I went to church, I wasn't expecting perfection. I went to church with the aspect of, I'm trash. I'm coming here with all these addictions. I'm coming here with all my problems and domestic problems and with this bundle of dirtiness. And when I got there, I would see somebody acting a fool. I'm like, I was just doing that 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? So it was something where it was easy for me to have that shield of not getting injured.
Yeah.
People would say weird things. I'm like, oh shoot, like, why'd you say that?
Right.
But in my mind, I was like, it's normal. Like, these people are not perfect. So I'm kind of grateful that I went to an environment where, prayer was important, the Bible was important. But, other than that, if people were doing weird stuff or having weird practices, I was just like, okay, like, you on a different level. Like, that's you, right? Because I didn't want to hinder how God was, like, ministering to me at that moment. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, God is, like, real. Because I basically didn't think he existed.
Yeah. I think for me, I had to do a lot of, like, deconstructing.
Yeah.
Because I shared this with you guys before we started, but, like, I was kind of used as the poster child of, like, pro-life. Like, oh, Brittany made it to USC and had a kid at 19 and, like, see what God can do. But the reality of it is I benefited from a lot of programs that were free for me because I was a single mom. I went to USC on university grants. USC is a lot of money, right? So when that was known, people in the church would be like, well, that's not fair because you didn't work for it. And I didn't have a kid at 19. So I should, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just like, that was like, well, then don't talk about my story then. Because if it wasn't for Professor Wilson that connected me to all these resources that believed in me, and he wasn't even a part of the church, I believe God could have used him though. If it wasn't for him, I for sure would not be where I'm at. And that's just the reality. I had a lot of access to programs to get me where I'm at. And so there was a lot of judgment. There was a lot of criticism I received for like taking advantage of programs like that. So then that made me feel like, going back to how my grandma raised me, you're fake.
Yeah.
Like, get out my face with that. That's how I felt.
That's
and-
your daddy's side.
Yeah, that's where that's where Bob from the Bomba.
Yeah.
Like, don't play me. Like, stop being fake. Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
So that didn't sit well with me. And so I really throughout the years had to deconstruct like what connecting to God is for me. Connecting to higher power. How has God moved in my life? I have a very, very like strict, and this is probably my dad and me, but I have a very rigid routine. Like, I wake up no later. The latest I wake up is 5. I wake up, I journal, I do a devotional, I go work out, come home, kids, drop them off, we'll get ready for work. I'm at the soccer field and sometimes until 9 o'clock, right?
Dang.
But like in all of that, I have looked for and experienced God in so many ways outside of church that to me, like, my honest experience right now is it's hard for me to experience God in church. Like, I really don't.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
And I've tried many. But to me, it is like it is waking up before the sun comes up and having that candle there and writing down what I want to, like, what's coming up for me, what's going on in my life. It is, that place in Waimanalo in Hawaii. It is, connecting to my grandma. It is like these, like, being outside and like,
still alive?
no, my grandma passed.
Okay.
So there's certain things where I'm like, yeah, that's, like, there's certain ways that I feel that spiritual presence. Even making music is spiritual,
Oh, yeah.
So and I think I share that in all honesty because I feel like a lot of people are there right now, where they come from like a very they come from that background where they grew up in the church and there's a lot of expectations and perfectionism, especially when you grow up in that, right? So the thing that church does is it provides almost a sense of like comfort that if you do X, Y, and Z, that you are going to heaven or you are connected or you're worthy of whatever, right? But to me, there was a lot of, performativeness I saw in church. There was a lot of from teachings to worship to practices, like there just was. And so it's like kind of like hip hop, right? Like when someone is like really spitting about something they lived through and not.
I don't know.
Like I just couldn't rock. I just couldn't rock with
You
it.
hit it right on the nose.
Yeah.
And
Been slanging this. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, bro.
Yeah.
You live in Marietta, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
tapping fools. And
Yeah.
Second, bro. Like,
My mom is gonna testify. I'm like,
I think that's what makes like when I look at the Kendrick and Drake beef, right? You can hear
it up, okay?
Yeah, we could talk about it. I think that people that are Kendrick fans, like Drake's cool. I could work out to Drake, but I really connect to, not because I'm from Compton, but like just in being from the West Coast, just from like, especially his last album, GNX, you could hear the influence of Southern California, right? With the samples, like there's a certain sound. So I feel like the difference between the two, in my opinion, just talking hip hop, is Kendrick embodies MC culture or just being an MC, which an MC is going to tell you what you're experiencing because they're in it too and they're taking notes and they're observing it, right? So they can speak that language. A rapper is going to speak typically to topics and subjects that are going to elevate a label or monetization of music. So that's the difference in my opinion. So some people are going to like one, some people are going to like the other. Doesn't make one better than the other, in my opinion, just on like craft wise. Kendrick is, but that's because I value like real conscious music. I like Drake, but it's not something that I would be like.
I don't.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't be something that I would listen to if I'm really trying to like. I don't know.
Yeah, just like vibe, man.
It's good music. It's good. It sounds good. It just sounds good.
So what motivates or what inspires you more is the beat, huh? So you get there, you're like that drum and beat or that particular music.
Right. Well, if you think about how hip hop started, it started with the DJ.
Yeah.
So everything starts with the beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, speaking to my bro over here, this guy has a lot of songs, and then how do you do it?
How do I do it?
How do you cook it up?
Yeah. Do you write before it, or does the beat tell you what to write?
I like to go by the beat,
Yeah.
but sometimes, like I'm working with Busy. He's a producer over here. Shout out to Busy Beats.
He's not here yet.
No,
Oh, at the gym.
he's sick. Like he's
I gotta
still-
log in with you guys.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
do something. Let's cook something.
If he was here, he'll show you everything
Yeah.
he got.
But I like to go by the beat, see what the beat is gonna inspire me.
Right.
But sometimes I like to be ahead of the game and just create, lyrics
Yeah.
where it's like, okay,
Apply it to a beat.
yeah. So
That's dangerous though. Because sometimes, I mean, I think it's doable if you find the right beat,
yeah,
right? And that, to me, that's why I say it's dangerous,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's hard to find something that connects to what you wrote, like
Yeah.
emotionally.
yeah, exactly. So my boy here, he's like, yo, dude, you should create a track that's a San Diego anthem.
Mm,
And I was like, huh. I was like, okay.
right.
I was like, okay, I'll step up to the challenge, and I'm searching through beats, right? And I'm like, okay, what's something that could inspire me to do something?
Right.
And then I started writing on Still Dre,
Okay.
Still DRE. It's
Yeah.
just like
That's a real West Coast beat.
right,
Yeah.
like very summer West Coast,
Mhm.
And then I'm doing a little spoiler alert here. So I connected with Busy, and I was like, yo, bro, like this is the elements that I'm looking for, because I'm from Ensenada, like I'm from Baja, like I was born in Mexico, born and raised, but also
Yeah.
and was raised here in National City too.
Mhm.
Like I have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So okay, how would he infuse in with the sounds?
Hmm.
And I said, but this is what inspired me. And so he just like created,
That's so dope.
like he took the notes, because he's a musician.
Mhm.
He's not just a beat maker. He's a musician.
Oh, they're whole scientists.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way they can manipulate and navigate sound is wild.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, so the way he got it done, it was like perfect. So
That's dope. Can't wait to hear it.
yeah, no, I'll show it to you real
Okay,
quick so you
cool,
can. Little,
So let's fast forward because of time. So when did you start practicing?
Like therapy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I got my master's from UH Manoa. I worked with the Army out there, and then I also worked in probation. I worked in drug unit. So I worked in addiction. Then my husband got out the military, and then we moved back here. So I worked. I started my career working in nonprofit world. So I worked in Oceanside. I worked at Oceanside Unified. I worked every school in Oceanside. So I credit Oceanside for a lot, because the schools, the families, the kids I worked with right now, that was like my basic training. That was my boot camp. And it was like, I love Oceanside, because Oceanside, like the families were very similar to like my family. So it was, I felt very much connected to that city. And then I worked a lot of school districts: Carlsbad, Spring Valley, Sweetwater. I worked with a bunch of kids that fell under special ed. Specifically, the label that they use is emotional disturbance, which I think is ridiculous. I think it's
Emotional disturbance.
I think it's like I think they could have came up with a way better name
Right.
for that. A lot of the kids I worked with have been through a lot of developmental trauma. So developmental trauma is basically childhood trauma.
Gotcha.
So again, posing the question, like, what's wrong with this kid versus what happened to them is going to help you have a better understanding of how to work with them. And a lot of the most effective ways I worked with those kids was through hip hop. So I was a student though, right? Because these kids weren't listening to what I grew up on. Like,
Action.
yeah,
Music.
it was like,
action.
yeah, it was like, you know,
What do you listen to?
what are you listening to? Yeah, so a lot of them introduced me to like local San Diego hip hop and whatnot. And so I use a lot of the music, like, tell me more about this artist. Where are they from? Like, what they've been through. Why do you connect with them? And all of those led to deeper conversations around like what they were going through. And because I wasn't like, turn that off.
Right.
That's terrible music, or that's trash, or that's it's very inappropriate music. Because I wasn't like that, they were like, oh, okay, she's cool. Like, she's not going to judge me. So then it created relationships that I had with these students and kids where we were able to do good work. Eventually, I got to a place in nonprofit world where I was kind of like frustrated with myself, because in nonprofit work, you're only able to go so far. So what they really focus on is behavioral therapy, which is resolve the behavior. And you have X amount of time to resolve the behavior. Well, that's not how trauma works.
I was gonna say you got to go deeper than that.
You have to go to the origin.
Yeah.
So during that time, I just wasn't finding fulfillment. I was also an adjunct professor at Cuyamaca College. I was teaching intro classes to students there. That was cool. That was like really fulfilling. But during the pandemic, I really just got like just really frustrated. I wasn't quite believing in what I was doing anymore, and I wanted more. And then I also, my son was like a couple months old too. So I also wanted more balance in my life. And my dream was to always start my own practice and to create a team of therapists that reflect our community. And so I took that leap and left a full-time, very stable job in the midst of a pandemic, and I became an entrepreneur.
Oh.
And so, so I opened up a practice, and
You able to create that team? Like,
I was able to create the team. Still have the team. Right now, we're kind of like, running a team is a lot.
Right.
And then also a lot of people don't understand that running a business in California, specifically California, is very expensive too. So right now we're in this place where like I kind of view it as like my team, I kind of view it as like, come onto the team, train with me, get what you need to know, and go do your own thing. Like, go open up your own practice now. Like, everyone's gonna phase
you
out.
have your own boot camp.
Yeah, it's like my own clinical boot camp. But a lot of it is like, how do you be yourself as a therapist?
100%.
Because a lot of therapists, a lot of people that I were my supervisors or my teachers, like clinically, I probably could never open up to. They were just like, it's kind of like doctor office vibes, right?
Like a dentist.
Yeah, like it was just intimidating.
But that's not your vibe, like you said about the church situation, and it goes back to the professional medical field. Like, I don't want those type of vibes here or those type of people here.
Well, also, I come into the mental health field. Again, remember, I had my graduate program in Hawaii, right? Which Hawaii is they teach you native Hawaiian culture, which is very important. It's very similar to the values are very similar to how I grew up. So I had that background. And then I also have I'm a hip hop head. So I came into the mental health field already with a almost like decolonized approach to healing work because of those things. So I would say I came in with an advantage because I didn't look at these psychologists or like doctors like Sigmund Freud for direction. I looked at how my grandma would have navigated that. I look at how certain indigenous practices in Hawaii navigates. Like in Western psychology, they just view the brain. Like indigenous communities view the brain, the body, the spirit, the mind, the holistic experience of a person.
Yeah.
And so I came in with that already has my mindset. So I didn't quite resonate with some of the supervisors. Like we just were different in how I would approach things. Like some supervisors would never share with the client where they're from. I had no issue being like, I'm from LA. or like
You would show up and you're bumping.
I would. No lie. I worked with so many families that were guarded because let's be honest, like therapists or social worker, we view as the police or we view as like, we
you're gonna
can't trust
snitch.
you.
Yeah,
You're going to snitch. You're going to report.
Oh, shoot. I never
So-
saw it that way.
So I would come in, no lie, and I would connect with these families off of talking about like Earth, Wind, and Fire or like music and oldies and like food and restaurants and recipes.
That's good.
That's how I connected with them. And then we got into the deeper work, right?
Gotcha.
So
It's a process, right?
it's a process. It's a very human process,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not going to expect you to tell me about your childhood trauma and you don't even trust me. You don't even know me
Yeah,
yet.
there's no connection.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that was my experience when my parents would take me to the psychologist.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, tell me what's wrong with you. I'm like,
Right.
shoot, I don't know, man. Like,
Are you?
Right.
but on that note, let's
We're
wrap
out of
it up.
time?
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's wrap it up with the well, speaking on the food and because this guy he creates all these
Okay.
these last segment
man.
questions.
The segue here, we do the 5 Ya Estás questions at the
Okay.
end of the pod. We got to do a part 2 because we need to get into.
Oh, we gonna connect, man. Like I'm
Yeah.
vibing. I like this.
Okay, so question number 1: what is the misconception about a therapist? Which you kind of already touched, but like, what is one of the biggest misconceptions?
That we know better than you.
Oh shoot!
Like you're the expert on your own life. We're just here to walk with you through that. And we have skills and tools to help you heal, but we are not better than you. We are not smarter than you. We are like I don't believe in that hierarchy at all. We just have certain tools, right? We have certain tools that could help.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Man,
good,
that's
good.
dope.
My boy needs therapy here, by the way.
Every day. Every day.
We all need a little bit of that, right?
I'm
Hold
going
up,
through.
bro. Don't be snitching on me, bro. Hold on, bro. We just spoke about this, bro. Like,
Putting him on blast.
people here, you know. All right. Question number 2. So these are all random, okay?
Yeah.
So can time ever heal an emotional scar?
Not
Time.
No, that's the biggest misconception.
Yes.
So the greatest example of that is when a soldier comes home from war and it's 4th of July and they hear the fireworks and the brain and body go into war. And that's because when we have experienced a trauma, and what is a trauma? All a trauma is something that happened to us that wasn't properly processed into long-term memory. So it
one more time?
revisits. Trauma is basically something that happened to us, a memory or experience that was not properly processed into long-term memory. So it's stuck. And when it's stuck,
Repeat.
it's on repeat. Exactly. It's almost like, think about it as like it's a movie, but the movie is on repeat in the bad scene. So you can forget about it, but then as soon as something reminds the brain of it, it goes into reliving the experience. So just like that example of that soldier, the soldier comes home, they hear the same sound, that's the trigger, the body goes in and it relives it in real time. So we see that all the time when people have experienced all different types of trauma. Typically, if you think you're healed, you're going to know the level of your healing when you enter into a relationship. Your relationship's going to bring out your deepest wounds.
Told you, part 2, bro. I told you.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it.
Doing, bro. This conversation. Okay. Here's a food question. So, what is your go-to snack at 10 p.m.? Like, when you're in your house, you're like, oh man, I want to sneak in a little snack. What is it?
Sheesh, that's hard right now because I'm really trying to be healthy. But before I was healthy, I would definitely.
You know what, tahini?
Yeah, I do that.
Fried.
Yeah, like any fruit with tahini and chamoy is my go-to snack. Yeah.
But that's a healthy snack.
Well, the chamoy is all sugar, but you know,
But the tahini, yeah.
tahini that has no sugar. I already looked it up. It has no sugar. Okay, so question number 4. It's a Bible question. It goes, so Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to those that are brokenhearted and saves the ones that are crushed in spirit." What does that verse mean to you?
To me, that means that when you're really, really going through something and there's no hope and there's no direction, I think that we are designed to lean into faith. And whatever faith that is for people, like I work with people that come from all walks of different faith in life. I think we're designed to lean on that to get us through.
Ooh, nice.
That's beautiful.
And I also think that that speaks to like who God is really for too.
Ooh, I like that. I like
I
that.
always so real quick, I grew up without a dad.
Mhm.
So I'm getting my free session, bro.
Let's go. I got you.
So I grew up without a dad, and the first thing that I felt that God supplied me is as him being my father.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something where it was hard for me to say the word dad.
Mm,
So it was like that word was not in my vocabulary.
right.
Mm.
But
Right.
yeah. So
Mhm.
okay. Number 5. Okay, so I looked this up yesterday. So according to health research, fears can manifest as phobias.
Mhm.
Okay. And then phobias become like an anxiety
Yeah.
for the future. What is a good way to face that in time fear or that moment of fear before it becomes an anxiety?
So it depends, right? If we're talking about a phobia, I would definitely encourage people to like seek out a therapist because phobias are real. So sometimes phobias could be a freeway. It could be
What do you mean by freeway? It's a connection to something else?
yeah. So for example, like if I've worked with people that have been in really bad car accidents.
Okay.
So like a freeway or even being close to a freeway is a phobia, so they avoid it, right?
Mm.
What was your question again? What are ways what?
So can you face those fears before they become a phobia? So you kind of answered it like find a therapist.
Yeah, find a therapist if it's a phobia. If it's like, for example, if there's a fear of posting on social media, two
That
things.
exist?
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I think people are.
Post.
Well, think about this, right? Like we grew up in a time. I grew up where social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
So if I'm at a hip hop show and someone's performing, the way that they get their likes is real life props, right? Like they get that love in real time. It doesn't exist like that anymore. It's likes, it's metrics, it's follows, it's like all these things that give us reputation. So I think that that adds a lot of pressure to people, especially creatives. So two things I would recommend. One, my favorite quote is the greatest antidote of anxiety is action. Take action, do it, lean into what's uncomfortable. But my second recommendation for people is to regulate the nervous system. So regulate the nervous system means regulate the bottom part of the brain connected to the body. So the way to regulate the nervous system is by engaging in anything that involves patterned, repetitive, rhythmic movement. So walking is an example of that. Being in nature is an example of that. Listening to music is an example of that. Anything where you're bobbing right, left, or moving right, left is the way that the brain processes stress. And the best example of that is when we're sleeping, and because sleeping is the way that our body recovers. What are our eyes doing? They're moving right, left. It's REM sleep. So moving the body actively is going to help you navigate and process some of that stress.
Man,
Hey, drop the mic. Drop
mean-
the mic.
I told you, bro.
That's all? I'm just kidding.
That was 5.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
5.
No, we definitely would love to
Yeah, we
run
appreciate
it
you.
back.
Of course. It was dope.
This is just like touching the surface.
Yeah.
It would be cool to, touch more specific topics like childhood traumas
Yeah.
and, because that's a,
Man, that's
Yeah, if you're looking to talk about like addiction or any type of anything that's common like that, it's going to be connected to trauma.
yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. And that's what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
We're about bringing that holistic,
Yeah.
and break that stereotypical church mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love the church. We go to church, but since we're part of it, we notice
Yeah.
the
Well, I think one of the things that the church misses is I don't think we're quite educated on how we're created, how our brains were
Right.
created.
that part.
Right. So I think when we understand that, we can have tools to help us live out like a spiritually fulfilled life.
That's it. All right. Well, thank you so much once again.
Yes, of course.
People find you.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, all platforms at B Williams LCSW, and then we also have a YouTube page called Healmatic SD, and then there's also a podcast that we do where we talk about specific themes related to healing and culture, and that podcast is called the Wholehearted West Coast Living Podcast.
Whoo, fire. All right, everybody. Well, make sure you give us that
Subscribe.
thumbs up and throw a comment, and especially connect with our sis here that she's doing tremendous work. The way God is using her is mind-blowing and one of a kind. I've never seen it before, so I'm just super pumped and stoked about this. So we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
Late.
Junior on the beat, boy. Ya estás, podcast, boy. Let's go. Ya estás, no vuelvo para atrás, libre del Alcatraz, en la guerra tengo paz. Mis metralletas es la oración y adoración, salvación para mi nación, manifestar el reino es la meta. Puesta la armadura, que las criaturas andan duras de la dimensión oscura, mi alma se apresura.